Today I'm starting a new video series called Scariest Things Police Have Seen, Part 1. Officers were dispatched to a call about a burglary in progress. The homeowner was in the kitchen and heard running upstairs. Officers arrived and set up a perimeter around the house. The canine officer gave several warnings saying that they were going to let a canine loose. Just as he gave the command, a perimeter officer saw a hand pull the curtain back on the top floor and relayed the information over the radio. The canine officer sent the dog in, and sure enough, no one was found. The perimeter officer was 100% certain of what he saw, and the homeowner was sure he heard running upstairs. Like for Part 2, Scariest Things Police Have Seen, Part 2. A police department started receiving calls from a vacant house twice a night for almost a week. The voice on the phone sounded like an elderly lady with Alzheimer's, barely audible, saying, please help, with coughing. The voice on the phone was totally unresponsive to dispatch's questions. Every time police went to the house, there was no one there. A records check showed that the previous owner of the house was a woman taking care of her elderly mother who was dying of lung cancer. Please like and share for more creepy police stories. Scariest Things Police Have Seen, Part 3. A deputy who worked a backwoods county area stopped his vehicle because he had to go to the bathroom. The nearest bathroom was 30 minutes away, so he decided to stop on the side of the road. The deputy had this unnerving feeling like someone was watching him. He looked around, and about 20 feet from his patrol vehicle, he saw a shadowy figure standing there watching him. The deputy stopped, zipped up, and started questioning the figure, who did not respond at all. The deputy was scared that it might be an ambush, so he ordered the figure to show him his hands. Finally, the deputy pulled out a flashlight and aimed it right at the figure, who disappeared. The deputy could hear no movement, no rustling in the bushes, nothing. The deputy jumped back in his patrol vehicle, took one look back, and saw the creature there again, this time approaching him. So he took off. Like and share for more creepy police stories. Scariest Things Police Have Seen, Part 4. About 20 years ago, several officers responded to an alarm call at an old PTA building in Austin, Texas. They found an unsecured door on one side of the property. The youngest officer posted himself there while the other officer went to search the property. The officer was staring right at the door when all of a sudden the alarm sounded again and the door slammed shut right in his face. The senior officer ran right back over to his position and asked why he slammed the door. The youngest officer said, I didn't. The officers requested assistance from a canine unit. The dog searched the building and found nothing. Even though the dog was acting hinky like someone was in the building, it never picked up a scent. Finally, a key holder showed up. The officers told him what happened and he said, well, you know the place is haunted, right? He told them there was a secretary that used to work there for 30 years, and after she died, there were reports she kept showing up for work. Like and follow for more creepy cop stories. Scariest Things Police Have Seen, Part 5. Now this one's from a 911 dispatcher. She got a call from a family saying their teenage daughter was possessed. The dispatcher assumed it might be a mental health issue or possibly drug related, but the family assured her she had no history of anything like that. The family members were holding her down, and over the phone, the dispatcher could hear two people yelling at each other. The dispatcher asked the family to tell whoever was yelling at her to stop. The family replied, it's her. The dispatcher said, I know it's her, get whoever's yelling at her to stop. The family replied, it's her, both voices. The dispatcher couldn't really explain it, but she could definitely tell she was listening to a young girl's voice with an adult male yelling back. In this situation, do not call 911, call a Catholic priest. Scariest Things Police Have Seen, Part 6. One evening, several officers brought in a combative subject who was arrested for domestic violence. As they were bringing him into holding, they walked past cell number 1. The officers didn't pay much attention to him, but there was a guy standing in the cell. He looked normal, there was nothing really out of the ordinary about him. Later on in the shift, the officer was asked by a sergeant to do a head count before transporting the prisoners to county jail. The officer started with cell 1 and found it was empty. Everyone started to panic because they thought they lost a prisoner. They went over all the paperwork and found no one was ever placed in cell 1. The officers went to check video surveillance and found that sure enough, indeed, there was someone standing in cell 1. But the creepy thing was, as soon as the officers walked by the cell door, it just blinks out of existence. The officers tried to put this evidence of paranormal activity on a DVD or USB drive, but the footage didn't show up. Scariest Things Police Have Seen, Part 7. At around 2 a.m., a young officer returned back to the patrol station because she was coming off shift. At that time of night, the station was usually empty. As she was walking towards the locker room, she walked by an empty admin area. She saw an older male officer that she didn't recognize, so she greeted him. He ignored her, and as she looked over her shoulder, she noticed he was gone. She was creeped out, but she just told herself she was imagining things. A couple of days went by, and she saw the picture of the same officer she saw that night on the wall of fallen officers. The officer had killed himself several years before. Scariest Things Police Have Seen, Part 8. This one comes to us from Espanola, New Mexico, and just so you know, it has video. Late at night, an officer was watching surveillance cameras at the station, and this is what he saw. A figure walks through the sally port of the station parking lot. He checked and the sally port door never opened, and he couldn't find anyone in the parking lot. Scariest Things Police Have Seen, Part 9. About 10 years ago, a couple repeatedly called police about hearing footsteps in their home in Imperial, Missouri. The responding officer had been there twice and found nothing, and figured the third time would be just the same. When he got there, he found an open sliding glass door, and something had set off the motion light. The officer looked all around the outside of the house and couldn't find any footprints in the snow that would have caused the motion light to be set off. As he interviewed the couple as to what happened, he heard creaking in the floorboards upstairs like someone was walking on them. He looked around again and couldn't find anything. The officer said, out of his 27 years of policing, it was the creepiest thing he had ever experienced. Scariest Things Police Have Seen, Part 10. This is an audio recording from 1981 by a police officer who saw a UFO. Listen for yourself.
Yeah, yes, all it is now is just an orange glow. That's all I can see. Just an orange glow. Because the sun is coming up. Better not be. It's awful early. Early for the sun paper, Joe. I don't think the sun would just be in that one spot. It goes up to a higher vantage point, so you tell us what it does. Listen.
Freaky. Scariest Things Police Have Seen, Part 11. This one comes to us from a police officer in Nebraska, and let me tell you, this story freaked me out. One night the officer was checking on an abandoned house that was often hit by thieves who stole the copper wire inside. He checked on it twice that night. First time at 7 p.m., everything was fine. 2 hours later, he noticed an open back door, but he couldn't see any footprints in the snow. He told dispatch he was investigating the open door and he went inside. All of a sudden, he heard a thump come from upstairs, and he thought he heard the sound of kids playing. He went upstairs to investigate, and he heard the thump several more times, and the sound of laughter gets stronger and stronger. He entered the bedroom where he heard the sounds and didn't find anyone inside. What he did find, however, was a ripped out page of a children's book with the drawing of a police officer on it. He left the house and he never went back. Like and follow for more. Scariest Things Police Have Seen, Part 12. This one is from my best friend who's also a cop. I'm going to read his report word for word. It's kind of silly, but kind of creepy too. I arrived on scene and immediately noticed a strange feel to the area. Numerous dogs were barking and a single loud howl echoed from somewhere nearby, with shivers running down my spine. I approached the incident location. I spoke to the reporting party through the door, who was terrified and refused to come out. He stated a dog, larger than he'd ever seen with blue glowing eyes, was tearing apart the fence outside of his bedroom window. On the east end of the property, I located numerous very large paw prints. At numerous points on the top of the 8-foot wood fence, there were bite and deep claw marks. The fence had been ripped apart in numerous spots. I am unaware of any animal that would be able to chew on the top of an 8-foot fence. At this time, it is unknown what caused the damage. I was unable to locate any animal matching the reporting party's description. Scariest Things Police Have Seen, Part 13. An officer responded to a residence in reference to a psychiatric issue. The homeowner told the officer her son had taken drugs and was convinced that whenever he entered his room, he saw a man wearing a World War II uniform hanging from the ceiling. When the officer talked to the son directly, he told him he was ordered by an evil spirit not to enter the room because it was his father hanging from the ceiling. The officer entered the room and didn't find anything. A veteran officer later responded and told the young officer that he had been to that house years before. What he responded to was a call about an old man wearing a World War II veteran uniform who had hung himself. The initial officer had no idea about the previous call. Scariest Things Police Have Seen, Part 14. A police officer wrote about his experience when responding to an elderly lady's house. The lady insisted there was a young girl running around her property at night. The officer first checked outside the house and didn't find anything. The officer went back inside the house to talk to the elderly lady who was petrified. The lady told him she's inside the house. Soon after, the cops saw a girl about 13 years old run from one side of the house to the other. He told her to stop, but it seemed like she disappeared into thin air. The lady yelled to him, saying that the girl was now in the front yard. Sure enough, the officer saw her standing out in the rain. He tried to stop her, but again she disappeared without an explanation. He searched all over the property, but couldn't find her anywhere. A few months later, the officer found out the old lady had passed away, and the new tenants that moved in started calling about a 13-year-old girl on their property. Scariest Things Police Have Seen, Part 15. 2 Oregon State troopers were dispatched to a call about a man holding a gun to a woman's head. When the officers arrived, they found a woman crying over and over again saying, "He shot me, he shot me." The officers checked her and couldn't find any apparent injuries and informed her she hadn't been shot. The woman gave officers her name but refused any help from them. She declined an offer by the officers to get a ride somewhere else. Since she refused any kind of help, the officers had no choice but to leave her. Back at the station, one of the officers looked up the woman's name. He discovered that a woman with the same name was shot and killed by her husband years earlier. Scariest Things Police Have Seen, Part 16. This story is about a mother's love that was so strong, it transcended the veil between life and death. A mother and her infant daughter were driving near the Spanish Fork River in Utah. The mother lost control of the vehicle and plunged into the river. Approximately 14 hours later, a fisherman found the vehicle and notified emergency responders. When first responders arrived, they saw no signs of life and figured it was just an abandoned vehicle. As they got closer to observe the wreck, they heard a woman's voice yelling for help. When they flipped over the vehicle, they found that the mother was clearly deceased, but they found the baby girl unconscious but alive. The baby girl was treated for hypothermia and was later found in the investigation that the mother died on impact. All the first responders swore they heard the voice of a call for help. Scariest Things Police Have Seen, Part 17. I saved this one special for Halloween, so make sure you turn the volume up and listen to what this officer heard on his body camera footage in California while searching a building. Happy Halloween. Scariest Things Police Have Seen, Part 18. This one's pretty bizarre. A police officer made a traffic stop on a man in a vehicle. The police officer spoke with the man and didn't really notice anything out of the ordinary. When the officer returned to his vehicle, he noticed a female officer standing next to him. He didn't recognize her and he didn't call for backup. The only thing she said to him was, "He has a gun in the back seat." The officer cautiously approached the vehicle again, arrested the man, and sure enough, found a gun in the back of the car. After this, the female officer was nowhere to be found. It turns out the man he arrested was wanted for murdering a female police officer years before. Scariest Things Police Have Seen, Part 19. This creepy story comes to us from a police officer in St. Louis, Missouri. He was dispatched to a Victorian-style house in reference to a burglary alarm going off. The owner was out of town and there was an open door. The officers went inside the house, and when they entered, the door slammed behind them. Thinking it might have just been the wind or a pressure change, they decided to keep searching the house. They searched the entire house without finding anything, but when they went back downstairs, they heard a noise. The faucets on all the sinks downstairs were turned on, and the water was running. They never found an explanation about what happened, and I don't think any of them returned there ever again. Scariest Things Police Have Seen, Part 20. This is another one that really creeps me out. While working at night, a police officer came across a vehicle parked in an empty church parking lot. He figured it was just kids having a late-night Bible study. He drove up next to the vehicle and found no one inside. He pulled his unit around to the back of the car so he could run the license plate to see if it was a stolen vehicle that was dumped in the parking lot. The officer looked down as he ran the plate, looked back up, and he saw someone sitting in the front seat staring at him through the rearview mirror. This is something that cops really pay attention to, that you're trained to observe on traffic stops. He had that, "oh crap, I missed something" moment, and he drove up next to the car to talk to the driver. When he drove back up next to the car, there was no one there. The officer said it freaked him out so much, he took off. And when he went back the next night, the vehicle was gone.
Storytime on when I caught my stepdad abusing my mom. So a little background information, men are trash, and I was 13 and in 7th grade. Well, it was my birthday and my mom took me to the shoe store to get some new shoes, and I saw this guy keep staring at my mother. So I pulled my mom aside and whispered to her like, "Hey, there's some dude staring at us," because low-key he looked creepy as hell. Well, apparently he wasn't creepy. He came up to my mom and started talking to her, and he was flirting with my mom a lot, so I grabbed a random pair of shoes and told her I was ready to go. Her and I walk up to the register. I think the conversation is over with her and James. But then he's like, oh, like, let me pay for that. Next thing you know, they exchange numbers and I start seeing him a lot more. And my mom seemed very happy, like she was smiling 24/7. So fast forward, we all move in together and I got a job. Well, my best friend Kayla was 17 and she had her driver's license. Like for part 2. Part 2 about when I caught my stepdad abusing my mother. So like I said, we all moved in together. My mother was super happy and I had a job. My best friend would come and pick me up after this job and I would usually get off work around 7 p.m. Well, around this time, James would have already been at work. He usually started work at like 6 o'clock, but every time that I would come home, my mother would be crying in her bedroom. So I ended up telling my best friend about it, and she said that she would come and get me early the next day from work, so that way we could possibly see what was happening while I wasn't there. So fast forward the next day, Kayla come and gets me early from work. She pulls around the corner, and we walk to my house because they would have seen her car if we parked on the street. I quietly unlock the door. My best friend and I go upstairs. We hear my mom screaming in pain, and the bedroom door was wide open. He was hitting my mother, so I kind of whispered to my best friend to take a video while I called the cops. He ended up going to jail, got a restraining order, and now my mom and I are living in a new house.
This is why you should be careful who you marry. Once was a man who hated his wife, so he came up with a horrifying plan. But he would never expect that she was one step ahead. He lied by saying he wanted to fix their marriage by taking her on a vacation to a hotel near the mountains. There they went to a long hiking trail near a cliff. His plan was to push her and claim it was an accident. But this went terribly wrong. As soon as they arrived near the cliff, his wife said something unexpected. I know you hate me, but you have no idea how much I hate you. Then she revealed what she had done. Before leaving the hotel that morning, she wrote a note to the hotel manager saying she knew her husband was planning to push her off a cliff, and if anything happened, tell the police. Then she looked up at her husband and said, now there's no way you'll convince anyone this was an accident. Horrified, the husband said, what accident? But before he could finish, his wife jumped. By the time he went back to the hotel, the police were already waiting.
Am I the asshole for letting my son drive to school despite his mum's protest? My son is 17 and a junior in high school. He got his license in October, but obviously there's a lot of restrictions. His mum, we are divorced, will not let him drive unsupervised, meaning she has to be with him. I let him drive my car to and from school and to school activities. She found out and demanded that I stop doing it. I told her that I trust him and he gets to be cool driving a Tesla to school, plus he gets a prime parking spot. Compounding the problem is that he apparently told her to piss off over something and she won't let him drive at all and said that I should follow suit. I told her that's between her and him. I don't want to get involved with my ex-wife's issues with our son driving as a means to control him. That's between them and I will not be adjudicating their conflicts, but am I the arsehole?
So it is currently 8:49 at night. I leave in less than 6 hours to get on my flight down to Fort Lauderdale. By the time you're seeing this, I'll probably already be in Fort Lauderdale. Listen, I know I always say this, but I think tonight's story time is going to be a short story time just because of the fact that I have so much stuff to do. Anyways, before we get into today's story time, a quick word from our sponsor. Okay, everybody, I would like to give a big shout out to Foreo for sponsoring today's video. Clearly we are in my bathroom, but I'm about to go to the gym and I need to take my makeup off and wash my face because I do not want to be sweating with makeup in my pores. So I'm kind of going to be showing you guys my skincare routine. So if you guys have watched me on TikTok before, you will know that I swear by the Foreo electronic cleansing device. I swear that is what cleared up my acne, especially the T-sonic pulsations that it has on their silicone touch points. But specifically, I will be showing you guys the Luna 3. Now, this is my old Luna, and I'm pretty sure this is the Luna Fofo. I could be wrong. But this is what the old one looks like. As you can see, it's much smaller. And the Luna 3 has massage points on the back, and this one does not. So this is the Luna Foreo 3. As you can see, it's way bigger, and it has the massage points on the back. And also, this one is rechargeable, as you can see right there. But let me pretty much get into a little bit about this device while I am washing my face. Okay, so as you can see, I look like a totally different person. Took my makeup off and pulled up my hair, and now I'm gonna wash my face. So I'm pretty sure that we who wear makeup can agree that we need more of a deep cleanse on our skin. I mean, you could need a deep cleanse in general, but I know for me, I need it because I wear makeup 24/7. I'm always applying different products to my skin, and whenever I have makeup on, you know, almost all day, all that makeup soaks into my pores. So with this device, I hooked it up to my phone, and whenever I did that, there are settings for your skin type, and I've obviously put mine on sensitive skin because my skin is especially sensitive whenever the weather is changing and everything like that. And using this device, it also gets rid of dead skin cells, dirt, oil, and I really like this one also because since it is silicone, it's not as harsh as a brush. So now that my 2 minutes is up, the device turns itself off, and right after, I took off my makeup with my own cleanser for my makeup, and I can still see on here there is a tan pigment on the soap that's on my Foreo right now because of all of the makeup that was still in my pores. Okay, so now that my face is all washed, I am pretty much ready to go to the gym. I know that no makeup is gonna be stuck in my pores because that's just something I cannot have. Okay, so now I'm all done with my skincare routine. That's pretty much all that I do. I feel like the Luna 3 really just like helps to hydrate my skin. Like, look, my skin is literally all one color. This does not happen until after I wash my face and I'm ready for bed. But if you guys would like to check out this device, I will have it linked down below in the description. All right, let's get into today's story time. I'm going to bring you guys up close. There we go. Okay, everybody, so I forgot to do the usual rundown for these videos, so future me here popping in. First of all, for most of the video, I will be looking in this direction because my mirror is over here and I would like to see what I'm doing. I tell these story times in first person point of view, so if you don't like that, then hit the road. And most of these story times are sent in by anonymous people. Okay, so story time about how this girl and I were dating the same guy at the same time. So a little background information. I was 16 and a junior in high school. Well, I had been talking to this boy, and we are going to call him Tyler. Him and I had talked for about 3 months, and we did everything that couples would do without the labels. Well, everything was super good the first month. It was almost like our honeymoon phase. Well, then that quickly ended the second month. He had took a picture of me on Snapchat and sent it to one of his friends. Well, they ended up Snapchatting him back right away, and when I looked at the name, it said Bailey. To make things worse, this girl, Bailey, was #1 on his best friends list on Snapchat. By the way, I did not have Snapchat. At this time, I thought it was the most useless app ever made. Well, the fact that she was #1 on his best friends list was very concerning. Now, I know you're probably wondering why that's concerning. Well, Tyler would Snapchat his friends all day, every day. So you would think that one of his guy friends would be #1. But no, somehow this girl was. It just was not adding up. So I asked if it was Bailey merch, and he was like, no, I would never do that. Like, my best friend used to mess around with that girl. So then I was like, okay, then who the hell is this girl? Like, come on. It ain't that hard. And he said that it was some girl named Bailey Moore. Like, I wonder if guys just think that we're stupid. Like, why would you just, like, change 2 letters in the last name? But okay. By the way, I am literally reading this story time for the first time with you guys. So, to be honest, I don't know if it's really a different girl or not. I don't know. And because I'm just dumb, I paid no attention to the fact that this is possibly her and he changed the name. Because I did know who Bailey Merch was, and so did everybody else, because a rumor went around saying that she slept with some girl's boyfriend. So I decided not to press the issue anymore and focus on the good, because we were both leaving for spring break in 2 days. Well, I went to Texas like a week before he went to Florida, and we talked the entire time and everything was going absolutely perfect. Except for the last 2 days. 2 days before I had left Texas, Tyler went down to Florida, and I didn't hear 1 word from him his whole entire trip, which was super weird considering the fact that we talked my whole entire trip. But I just ended up leaving it alone because I just wanted him to have fun on his vacation instead of worrying about fighting with me. How sweet of me. Well, when I was on my vacation, he had told me that he wanted me to come and meet his mom whenever we were both back in town. And I was super excited because I always heard great things about his mom, and it made me feel a little bit more closer to him. Well, then he also promised one of his friends that he would go to prom with them once he got back. So I did a little digging to find out who this person was that he was going to prom with, and it turns out that it is the same Bailey girl that was on his Snapchat. What a surprise. So I texted him because I just wanted to make sure. So I texted him asking who he was going to prom with, and he said Bailey Moore. And the reason why I texted him is because I wanted to make sure before I made a big deal about this that that was actually who it was about. So we don't want to look crazy for no reason. So at that point, I just left him on red because I knew that something was up at this point. Well, then he finally calls me later trying to ask me what's wrong. And I told him nothing, but he just kept asking. And that was pretty much the only time that we had talked while he was in Florida, because he decided that he was not going to talk to me until he got back. And the first day he was back, he decided that he was going to go to a party with some friends and get wasted. Then he spent the second day at the racetrack with his mom. So at this point, I was just really mad because he had not been responding to me. He just didn't seem like he wanted to talk to me. So I texted him and I was like, listen, you need to let me know if this is what you want or not, because I'm not going to put in time and energy to somebody who's going to treat me like this or doesn't want to be with me. So then he texts me back and he's like, no, like, I love you, I want to be with you, things have just been stressing me out a lot lately. So once again, like the idiot I am, I decide to forgive him for the time being. Well, we decided to go out for a movie later that night. Well, during the movie, I just kept getting this feeling that I really couldn't shake, that things really weren't good with us at all. So after the movie, I decided to ask him one more time about this girl, Bailey Moore, hoping to either get the truth out of him or just know more about her, to be honest. Because it's weird having some random girl go with your boyfriend to a different school to prom. But yet again, all I got was, I promise, she's just a friend. I'm only going with her so that way I can hang out with my buddy Mitchell, who was one of his friends from the same town that she was from, apparently. So the movie was on Sunday night and we were done, I guess, fighting after that. And we were doing all good throughout the week. Well, when Friday rolled around, he decided that he wanted to go and get drunk with his friends again instead of hang out with his girlfriend. I mean, the girl that he was talking to. Well, that Saturday, he decides that he wants to go out again with his friends and party. So at that point, I just decided that I would do the same thing. I would get drunk with my friends and just hang out with them. Well, that night I decided to drive home, and I guess my parents could smell the alcohol, or they must have seen me stumbling up the driveway, because they did not buy the story of, oh, I smell like alcohol because I drove my friends home. Sunday morning, they took my keys and my phone and told me I was grounded and that if I wanted to talk to Tyler, I had to get him to call one of their phones. So I had texted Tyler off of my phone before I gave it to them and said, hey, if you want to talk, like, you have to call me off my parents' phone because I am grounded. So he was like, okay, like, I'll try to call you at least once. I'm super busy. And one more thing, to make it worse, my parents had went through my phone and they saw that I was sexually active and that I had just taken a Plan B, like, not too long ago. Well, that made my dad go absolutely insane, so he decided to put me in an online class that was run out of the hotel that he was currently working at. Well, after that week, he must have felt bad for me, the fact that my boyfriend hadn't called the whole time, so he let me call Tyler. And he told me that I had at most 20 minutes to talk to Tyler. So I called Tyler and I was like really rude to him on the phone, low-key, but he deserved it. I was like, you're so rude. I deserve better than this. You haven't called the whole entire time. So then he tried to flip the whole situation on me, acting like he was the one with no phone to call me. He eventually apologized and said that he was scared to make my grounding worse. So that's when he decided that he just thought it was better if he didn't call at all. But then he was like, I still love you and still want to be with you, blah, blah, blah. So this time I told him, I don't believe you. You need to pick me or the BS. Well, then his response was, I don't think I'm ready to be what you need. I'm just not mentally there and I don't really want to do this to you. I've realized where I went wrong and I'm sorry. I just hope you can forgive me. So I just told him that I knew this was coming and that I just needed to hear it from him. And then he literally snaps me back saying, we can still be friends, right? I just don't think we can go beyond that because I don't want you getting hurt. Like, oh my God, thank you. How kind of you. So then I was like, I don't need you out of everyone feeling bad for me. Not to mention, I don't even need you at all. Like, how is us being friends going to make me feel better at all? It's not. It's really just not. Well, then he said that it would make him feel better because he still cared about me and he still wanted me to be his friend and be around. Like, sis, stop making this about you. So then I asked him, what was the problem? Because, like, did this all start over the fact that I didn't text you back earlier after I got mad? And he goes, I don't know. It's just been really hard lately. I've been struggling with a lot of things. Yet he keeps saying this and he's not even explaining what the problem is. So then I was like, okay, so basically nothing's changed. You don't want to tell me what's wrong, like... So then I just told him, all right, well, I'm here if you need to talk, which I think was more than generous of me. And then he said, the absolute worst thing that you could ever say to somebody when you're breaking up with them, it's not you, it's me. I just wasn't ready for someone as great as you to come into my life yet. Okay, sis. Then he proceeded to apologize over like 100 times. And that he didn't know how he could lose me or, you know, stop thinking about me because I was so addictive for him. And then at the end, I told him, you know what, it's my fault. Like, I thought you wanted this, but clearly you didn't. So then I made him promise that he would never do this to another girl again. Then he said something like, I promise, and when I'm ready for you, I'll let you know. But until then, don't wait up for me. So then at that point, I just left him on red because I was tired of it. Well, then 2 days later, I get a bunch of videos from a private story, and it just happened to be Tyler's. Well, then I had found out that Tyler put all of my friends into a private story because clearly he wanted me to know that he moved on, knowing that they would send the stories to me. And these stories are of him with this Bailey girl. The Bailey who literally he said, oh, she got with my friend, I would never do that. Yeah. And then it's captioned, one and only. Okay, sis. So I was laughing hysterically, kind of like in a crazy way and an angry way and an actual, it was funny way. If you know, then you know. And then one of Tyler's friends who had gotten with Bailey texted me saying that Tyler had been staying at her house the past 6 weeks. So the whole time that we were dating, not the whole time, but half of the time that we were dating. So then I decided to message her and tell her what kind of person Tyler was and that we were dating the same guy at the same time. She was super sweet and everything, but unfortunately she still made the mistake of staying with him and being involved with him. Okay everybody, thank you for tuning into tonight's story time. If you guys like this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up, and if you would like to see more of me, maybe hit that subscribe button down below, and if you would like to know whenever I post my next video, make sure to click that bell. Also, if you guys want to send in your anonymous story times, there will be a link down below for that as well. And just remember something, if you send in a longer story time, it will be featured on YouTube, or if you send in a short story, it will be most likely featured on TikTok. And if you guys want to keep up with me while I'm in Florida, or just in general, all of my social medias are linked down below. Love you.